Hi, my name is Genesis. This is a story time about the first time I went to confession as an adult and my experience leading up to confession and what happened afterwards. So let me know at the end of the video if you think this was a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience, or if you think it was more luck and like a placebo effect, because till this day I ponder this question. So we'll start at the beginning. I was born and raised Catholic. I was baptized as a baby, and I got my first communion and like confirmation as a young teen. And I grew up going to church every Sunday with my parents and praying with my mom or dad or my grandma like before bed, and then we would pray in the car before they dropped me off to school. So going to church and praying were a part of my life growing up, but I never felt like we were a excessively religious family by any means. I don't know, it felt normal to me. As a child, when you are raised in a certain faith, you just don't have an option because you're a child and you take what your parents are teaching you at face value. When I became a teenager, like adolescent, I started to question whether or not Jesus was God. Not necessarily in like a rebellious way, more just like in a critical thinking way. I just questioned, well, what makes the God that my parents are teaching me about the one true God? Why isn't Buddha the right God, or Allah or Muhammad the right God, or why isn't, like, I just questioned things. And then when I graduated high school and I left my parents' home, I pretty much just lost my spirituality. Like, I just no longer kept up going to church on Sundays. I wasn't praying anymore. I got introduced to like astrology and psychics and botanicals. I didn't lean on anything spiritually as a practice. I just tried different things. Like, I remember buying some crystals, buying some books. I went to see a psychic once or twice, but I didn't do anything as a part of my spiritual routine or religious routine. So I was just like open and not really believing in anything and kind of believing in anything. It wasn't until about age 26 that I guess you could say I hit rock bottom, and that led me to seek God. So I've struggled with addiction for more than half of my life, and that's, you know, a story of its own. So maybe I'll make a video on that at a different time. But if you're familiar with addiction, it is soul crushing and very dark, and you just have complete powerlessness over this thing, and it is compulsive and it is repetitive and you just cannot stop. So that's what addiction is. And I had hit a point where I was just like, is this my life? Oh my goodness, is it ever gonna stop? Am I ever gonna get better? Is this it for me? And I had one of those prayers where you're just up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep, and you're like in the middle of your addiction, and you're just like, God, if you're real, I'm gonna need you to do something for me, because I'm not seeing the light at the end of this tunnel. And I just remember crying one of those cries where you don't even know if you're like, if it's cry or if it's sweat. Like, you're just bawling. And yeah, I was like shaking. I was like, whew, I was like just at my wit's end. And and I remember, this is gonna sound like woo-woo-y, but I remember thinking like I was possessed, basically, because I just hit a point where I was like, how? I guess mental illness, of course I believe in mental illness, but I was just like, this is worse than mental illness. Like, I was like, how is this, like, how can I not help myself? Like, this is crazy. So I was like on YouTube, and I came across this exorcist, and he was being interviewed, and the videos are really long. They were like 1 or 2 hours long each, and there was like 4 different parts. So I'm watching this exorcist video because at this point I'm like, am I possessed? Like, do I need like to go to a priest? And somewhere in the middle of this video, the priest says my addiction by name. Like, and it's like a specific addiction. So that really caught my attention. And he was saying how a lot of people with this specific addiction seek help from Catholic priests, and they think they're possessed. So I don't know why I find it like a little funny, but because it's not. But he mentions these like deliverance prayers, or this deliverance prayer. I can't remember if it was one or more than one. But basically, I'm like, I'll try anything at this point. So, and I'm watching YouTube on like my big flat screen TV. So I pull up the deliverance prayer, I pray it, and then I leave it on my screen for like 1 or 2 days. When I tell you, I'm not scared of anything. I love horror. Like, as a genre, I love horror. I love Halloween. I love like paranormal activity and like just all that stuff. It's just something that is very entertaining to me, and I've always liked it as a little girl, and I'm not scared of anything. Like, it takes a lot for me to be scared. I'm telling you, after I put the deliverance prayer on my apartment, like on my TV screen, my apartment, it just became, I just felt like pressure like on my chest, and I felt like someone was watching me, and I was getting like chills on like all over my body. I was having a really hard time sleeping. And so all of this is just like weirding me out. And then I was working nightlife at the time, and I basically go through this like weird, like dumb situation during a shift at work, and this guy who happens to be very influential, very powerful, very wealthy, you could even say a little famous, but nonetheless powerful, threatens to ruin my life, which there was no merit there, like there's nothing to ruin, but like I've never experienced that though. And I'm going to substitute what actually happened just to protect my privacy, but I do think it's important to mention because it's a part of the story. Something awful happened to me that shouldn't happen to anyone, that is life-changing and absolutely wrong. I'm gonna substitute it. I'm just gonna say I was robbed. And at this point, this is all happening within the same week. At this point, I'm like, I think at that time I was just genuinely under the impression that I was being spiritually attacked. And I believed it so much that I quit my job, I broke my lease to my apartment, I broke up with my boyfriend, and I moved back in with my father. That's how much, because at the like all of this happening within a week, I was just like, this can't be it. And the weird thing is that I felt like because I prayed to God and because of the deliverance prayer, I think that's what started it all. And I feel like, it sounds weird, but I feel like the devil got mad that I was seeking God, and then like all these bad things started happening to me. That's what I felt. And about a month goes by, and my boyfriend basically like, he's like, I don't want to break up. Like, I know that you're going through like all of this. Like, I want to support you. So he gets a house for us to move into. So we get back together. But I'm telling him, I want to change my life. I think God is trying to help me. And yeah. And so I move in with him, but I'm still going to church. And then I go to confession for the first time. And I believe I prayed the Rosary again. And basically, from one day to the next, my addiction just went away. And I still had negative thoughts. I still had some like behaviors. I was still sinning in other ways. But my addiction that I've been struggling with for over a decade, that, stole my life away. It was just lifted. And the reason that is a big deal is because I had gone to rehab twice. I outpatient programs, one-on-one life coaching, 12-step programs, you name it. I have tried to help myself in every way possible, and I have never been able to stop. I've never been able to help myself. So yeah, like that, it was kind of a big deal that my addiction just stopped. It just stopped. And I only went to confession one time. And I did go to church every Sunday though. Maybe missed like a few Sundays, but yeah, and I mean, I remember at the time genuinely thinking like I had experienced a miracle, because I couldn't believe it. And it was one of the most free and liberating and happy years of my life. And that doesn't mean that I didn't have negative thoughts or I didn't sin or bad things didn't happen that year. But you have to imagine someone that has been through addiction for over a decade, and like you haven't experienced 24 hours without this thing, ruminating your whole life, to finally experience, months on end without that. I mean, it was a piece of heaven for sure. And yeah, I ended up going through a breakup that was really difficult, and I was starting a business at the time. I had to move out of my ex-boyfriend's house, and I was under a lot of stress, a lot of financial stress, and just really heartbroken as well. So I ended up kind of meeting up with some old friends and, getting caught into like old ways. And I haven't been back to church in like 6 months now. So it's been a little difficult. It's been tough, and yeah, things aren't the same right now, but it doesn't take away from that experience. And I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't know, maybe I will start going to church again. Maybe I need to make my way back to confession and see what happens. Let me know if you've had an interesting experience with confession, because I would really love to hear if anyone else has